Alright, so I woke up this morning and I decided today is the last day that this car will run as a supercharged car. I got this eBay Turbo and a lot of free time. So here's the intercooler I chose. My goal is to get it running on a cheap ass setup and then I can just upgrade piece by piece. This turbo cost me 200 bucks. This was $90. First issue of many. I only got 2 of these brackets in like the bare minimum hardware. I'm gonna pause the video right here. I know some people are gonna be wondering why I'm starting with just putting the intercooler on right away. I guess because I'm trying to do this whole thing without pulling the motor, I kind of just wanted to verify fitment of everything I had first, and that's just where I decided to start. It's gonna be the first task, is to somehow mount that up, and you can already see the clear size difference between that turbo and this intercooler. This one can maybe support like 300 horsepower if that. Something like this might work for the time being. Okay, so I activated 100% of my brain and decided to bend the brackets and kind of hook them right there. You can see it's not even being held up right now by this. So that's how it's kind of gonna sit. The issue I'm facing now is charge pipe routing. So I figured easiest would be for this side to delete this secondary air pump right here and kind of channel it up through this triangle right here and into the throttle body. But that's the outlet for the inlet, because you can't do the same thing on this side. The turbo will be sitting right up here, kind of facing this way. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to 90-degree bend it up here, route it across the top of the intercooler, and then through this little channel right here. I found this piece of a Mazda Speed 3 charge pipe that I've had for a while, and it kind of perfectly bends, so I'll be able to do the over-the-top charge pipe and right up through this valley. Another thing you can see, I pulled out the condenser because this car has never had AC, and it gives me some room for a bigger intercooler when the time comes. The only thing I don't like about having this here is you can see the intercooler is a little offset to one side, but whatever. Alright, I got it jerry rigged up. I mean, it's kind of flaccid, but that's just due to these aluminum mounts. Well, I finished everything I can do for now with the intercooler. I don't have any charge pipes yet, so I've been sitting back here with this absolute mess, relocating any vacuum lines or coolant lines that'll be in the way of the turbo. Turbo's gonna get really hot, so I don't want it melting anything like any wiring harness or coolant lines. Okay, day 2, kind of a humbling experience today. I realized how much more I have to do. I got my new charge pipes in today, just a universal kit. I'm gonna have to cut it in a few spots, but I think I can still make the kit work. I think the places I cut can be repurposed to other spots. So I think it'll work out. I also got all my oil feed lines, and I got a bunch of 2.5-inch mild steel. Yeah, for 2 days in, not too bad so far. Still a long ways to go, unfortunately. I think the game plan tomorrow is probably to source a Sawzall or angle grinder of some sort so I can get these cut down. I also need to cut on the headers. I'll show you my plan here with the headers. So the plan is to have the turbo sitting facing this way vertically. I'd like to cut the headers right on this weld and then get a 90-degree facing up on both sides, make it into a kind of a Y shape and have them connect into the turbo flange, which I ordered a universal pre-made flange, so that should work pretty good for me. I'll show you right here. I also still, before I can do anything, need to gut this supercharger, take off the belt and any other supercharger accessories here. And while the supercharger's off, this is where I'm tapping into for my oil feed line. Down here is the oil pressure sensor, and I think that's the most ideal spot for me, so that it can just go right up through here and into the top of the turbo. As far as charge pipe routing, I think I'm gonna stick with my plan of moving one across the top and one through the bottom of the headlight. I'm just a little worried about the hood clearance hitting right here, but from what I've seen and from what I've tested, if I put it low enough across this right here, it should be able to clear right through. The biggest issue I think I'm gonna have is trying to make sure that these don't bang each other on the way. So this one has to go into the turbo and this one has to go into the throttle body. I also had this laying around for a couple of years. It's just a shitty Spectre reducer. but I mean, it's kind of cool that it's the same size as the throttle body I'm using and the same outlet as the charge pipes I'm using. I've had this little box of random intake bits and lines and everything you could think of laying around for a couple years and just collecting. So I've actually been able to use most of this to get this kit working. I already know this is going to take way longer than it needs to. I don't really care how long it takes, as long as this car does not sit for the rest of its poor life. Another thing worth mentioning, this car is at 180,000 miles. So there is gonna be a lot of motor work that needs to be done eventually once I get this kit running good. But anyway, you gotta pay to play, so that's the way it goes. One last thing I thought was pretty cool. As soon as I took this throttle body off and this heat exchanger off, I posted it on Marketplace and it sold immediately. So I was able to recuperate some money from that. So that helps a little bit, keeps me motivated, but I can't get lucky like that forever. So yeah, the garage is an absolute wreck right now. I can't even park my other car in here at the moment. But yeah, end of day 2. We'll see what happens on day 3. Well, as you can see, we got some snow. That's gonna delay things just because it's gonna be cold as shit in there. This is day 3. As you can see, I got some more charge pipe here. I also borrowed a Sawzall, so I was able to cut what I needed. But yeah, I've kind of perfectly got it to work across here and loop up through. I also got this connected. This thing's kicking my fucking ass today. So I have completely given up on charge pipes. I've realized I can't really do anything until the turbo is mounted and in place. I'm running into a lot more fitment issues back here than I had anticipated. For now, I think I just have to wait for that flange to come so I can mount up the turbo and then see what all needs clearance. But yeah, as you can see, there's not much wiggle room in these coolant lines. This is kind of as out of the way as they can get. And all this wiring right here is kind of as pushed forward as it can get. And I'm still having some clearance issues. Right now, I'm kind of just trimming these to get somewhat of a fit. Yeah, I got a long ways to go. Honestly, I think this is just where I'm gonna end off tonight. Battery's dead for the Sawzall, and that's the only battery I have for it. I'm running through blades like no other. Yeah, tonight's proven to be a challenge. Still have to somehow figure out where I'm gonna relocate all these big vacuum lines for the brake booster and whatnot. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it because I don't have that little Y flange, and I can't get the turbo mounted without it. Other than the fact that I'm missing the little Y flange for the turbo, I have everything else I need. I got my O2 bungs in today. I ordered a bunch of miscellaneous stuff just to make sure I had everything. Also, I ordered this to tap into the oil pressure sensor. I'm hoping this is going to work, but the threads look a little too small. But unfortunately, I think this is where I'm going to wrap up today. I still have a few days before the Y flange is supposed to be here. So I guess I'm just going to collect my thoughts for a few days and brainstorm, wait till that Sawzall is charged, and then get back at it cutting tomorrow. Well, there it is. So, I mean, this is the most garbage welder I've probably ever used, but it makes metal stick. I'm just going to use it to tack up anything I need tacked, and then I'm going to go to a steel gas welder to finish the welds. As far as free goes, I can't really complain. I mean, it's going to get the job done. Okay, so about an hour later, all I've really done was make sure that this little Y flange I got fits up, which it does pretty fucking well. And I also reconfigured the turbo to have the feed line on top and the drain line on bottom. I think I'm about ready to lay a tack weld on this and just see how it fits up with the flange. I really have no measurements, so I'm just going based off eyeballing it. I know I'm gonna have to break the tack and move it a little bit, and probably trim this pipe down a bit. Oh my God, little left-handed tack coming up. This is making me rethink everything. Oh, just need one little tack. Oh man. I'm OSHA certified, so I can do pretty much whatever the fuck I want. Hell yeah. I think it's time to put on a mask and actually get some decent welds in there. That might also help if I turn the voltage up a little bit. If I hold it straight, it's kind of cocked, but right about there is where I need it. So, close. Well, should have seen this coming. Turns out this welder is too much voltage for this garage, and now I don't have power. This is a bit of a setback. Yeah, this one's gonna suck. I mean, I can't do anything else tonight, clearly. I have no power. I didn't know B8 project was gonna turn into home renovation project as well. But yeah, thanks a lot, Harbor Freight Welder. I guess I'm gonna have to fucking figure out why I don't have power. Okay, it's been a couple days. Luckily it was just that breaker back there. I just had to flip that on and off. And there was one in my basement too that's connected to this that had to be flipped. But yeah, I got power back. That welder is absolute dog shit. As you can see over here, there's been some progress made off camera. And yeah, some pretty decent progress. Everything's kind of falling in place pretty well. All the charge pipes are fitted up, except for I need to figure out how to close this gap right here. This is, I think, 2 inch. This right here is 2.5. And all I have is 2.5 inch couplers and charge pipe. So still working on that. You see the intake kind of sits perfectly in this pocket right here. Now I might try and cut something right here for some airflow, but I'm not 100% sure yet. And there is gonna be a lot of turbo noise in the cabin, which I'm actually pretty hyped for. It's also worth noting that I managed to do this whole setup while still keeping the supercharger intact. So at this point, I am technically twin charged, but I'm gonna delete the supercharger. I don't need the problems of a supercharger and a turbo, plus all the additional tuning, all the additional fueling I need. I also think I would need some sort of supercharger clutch to disengage it at high RPMs so that the turbo would take over at higher RPMs. I don't wanna deal with all that hassle. Also, still a long ways to go in terms of this header setup. This welder is genuinely not capable of penetrating that metal. I mean, my next course of action might just be to rent a welder that'll work decently with this kind of steel. I don't know what it is, if it's just the age of this thing, but I cannot do it. Another thing I still need to do is drill holes for the O2s. I have O2 bungs. I just need to figure out where the most ideal spot is for it. Unfortunately, this exhaust is gonna have to go out the hood. At this point in time, there's no other way. You can see how tight it is down there. There's no way I'm fitting another 2.5 or 3 inch exhaust down there. So yeah, until the motor comes out and I'm able to fab up some new headers that bring the turbo a little tighter, out the hood is the only way for this exhaust to go. Aside from the O2s, I still need to tap in this oil feed line and find a place for the return line to go. And then the turbo will be technically functional. Also, not bad on the clearance back here. Still, this hot side is touching some of these wires, so I'm gonna have to figure out some sort of heat shield to put in between them. But as far as the coolant lines, they're pretty well out of the way. Still gonna get some heat shielding, gonna get a turbo blanket, gonna heat tape everything that I can, heat wrap these headers. My tuner also informed me that the map sensor on the back of this supercharger hates seeing boost. So I'm gonna have to figure a way around that. He said that I can use these ones from here if I have a spare and try to make it work back there. But yeah, a lot more work to do. I have to take all this back off still. I still have to gut the supercharger. I have a lot more to do. But as soon as I got those headers mounted up, I really wanted to see how this thing would look, and it looks pretty fucking good. There's also no way in hell the bumper is gonna fit like this. I'm gonna have to figure something out. Maybe trim the bumper, I'm not sure yet. I'm also pretty stoked that this engine cover can still go back on here and cover most of that ugly vacuum lines and wiring back there. So yeah, I think next course of action is to take all the charge pipes off, take the turbo back off, finish welding up what I can back there with that shitty ass welder, then take the supercharger off, gut that, get rid of all these coolant lines and the pulleys and whatnot. Alrighty, I'm in the beater. I just went to AutoZone, picked up some of this, which is the same size as this. I also bought this, which is the perfect inside diameter of the little turbo pipe. So yeah, I'm pretty much just gonna extend it a little bit and then use that inside to give it some stability. And then I also got some of this. I've been relocating the brake booster, and I found that this line I had worked perfectly to give it some extra length. So I got some more of that. Okay, so somehow I got just enough of this black line to move it out of the way of any heat, kind of tucked over to the side here. And that's where I needed it to go to. So absolutely spot on perfect. And this also worked perfectly as well. You can see the metal's in there. Once clamped, that's not going anywhere. So now that all that's out of the way, next step I think is to pull the blower off and make it not that. Once the blower's off, I can gut it, and then I can tap into that oil feed line that I've been talking about. Maybe find somewhere to drain it as well. And I'm gonna save the O2 sensors for last, just so that everything's in place and I know exactly where is the most efficient spot for them to go. So just for shits and giggles, I threw the bumper on and it fits perfect. I was really worried about it not clearing here. But yeah, there's nothing there. Fits perfect. It looks so good with the bumper on. You can see the charge pipe intercooler through the grill. I love it. I'm so happy. Let's see if I can add a little cherry on top. Okay. Oh my God. Perfect. Shut. Okay, I'm gonna stop flexing an unfinished build. I'm gonna pull that supercharger off and get this shit one step closer to being able to have its first startup. Hopefully within the next couple days I can get this thing running, maybe even driving. Okay, actually I think I'm gonna end this video here. I'm realizing this is getting way too long. I don't want to have too many parts of this. Maybe part 2 of this will be getting the car running, hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe some revisions in that video. But yeah, for now I think I've filmed enough of this shit. I'm gonna go ahead and do the unfun stuff and record that for part 2, but I'm still a good ways away from getting this thing running, so I figured I'd make a separate video out of that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you. Fuck this car. I'll see you later. Okay, so after recording this and editing this video, there has been some mishaps. Bad things have happened and there are delays. Yeah, fuck. I may or may not have broke an oil pressure sensor. It's okay. Part 2 is gonna be delayed a little bit. Bye.